What's up, guys? It's your boy Owen from Fight Lens. We're back with St. George Groves. How are you doing, George?
I'm good, Owen. How are you?
Yeah, I can't complain. A bit of a nightmare getting here, but we're here in your home gym, beautiful as ever. And yeah, let's see what's been going on in the world of boxing. First of all, I think we should talk about Big George Foreman. You know, what an icon of boxing, a true legend. 76 wins, 68 knockouts, 5 losses. I mean, how much of an icon to boxing and what a loss.
Yeah, he really was. Like, my name being George, and I was into boxing at 7 years of age. And say, who's your favourite boxer? It was always George Foreman.
Yeah.
I'd never seen one of his fights, but I just appreciate we had the same name. As you get older, I think on the old VHSs, I had Rumble in the Jungle and, you know, a few other fights of his. And then since finding out about him, his story, fascinating fighter in an amazing era and just an incredible champion, you know. Arguably one of the hardest punchers of all time.
That's what they say, isn't it? Yeah. Imagine feeling the power of Big George. Yeah.
Big George. I mean, in this day and age, you probably wouldn't even seem that big, but back then, he was a monster, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and I think he won the Olympics with like 17 fights or something. It was, you know, with brute force. He wins an Olympic gold.
Hardcore
back
power.
in the day when everyone wanted to be, you know, an Olympic champion for boxing. So yeah, an incredible fighter.
And still kept going after he retired, didn't he, as an entrepreneur with the Big George Foreman grills. So
I mean, a lot of people probably know him for grills now, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I found out a little bit, watched his movie, like his movie that came out a year or two ago, and then where he was the bad guy, then he decided to revamp and be a good guy, do loads of commercial stuff, loads of advertising, and then, I mean, is there anyone you know who didn't have a George Foreman grill at one point?
Yeah, I had mine. Yeah, very good. They were healthy as well, weren't they?
Apparently so, yeah. They didn't even have an on-off button, did they? But everyone had one. I don't think I ever cooked anything good in it, but...
no, it was just cleaning them that was the hassle afterwards. That's what I remember. But yeah, what a legend. And but a great life and a great legacy left for him. I don't know if he's got any kids that are up and coming boxers.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know he's got a lot of kids. I think a lot of them are called George as well. But he's you know, we should listen to do commentary as well. And it's funny because like when you watch him box, you think, oh, he's just a big, heavy-handed dude. He's quite crude. What does he know about boxing? But when you listen to the way he talks and breaks down boxing, he has that old school know-how, you know, and that's how to win a fight, how to read people, how to, you know, beat the man in front of you. And you know, sometimes people get too scientific, too technical, too specific, when really you have to be like big old George and
take
get
it
the
back to basics.
Exactly
just smash their head in. And on the other end of the spectrum, you know, someone who's up and coming, a protege, Lucas Rowerig, your guy. Do you think, I mean, like, he fought again recently, didn't he? He went the distance, I think, this time. And he's back in action on April the 4th, is it? Stamford Bridge. What a prospect. You know, how's it looking for him at the moment? Yeah,
brilliant. Really good. So he got another outing down in Brighton at the beginning of March. And he was in a really good, tough fighter. And it's all about gaining experience for fighters at this point, you know, of his level, his standing. The first time he's gone the distance, which no doubt is frustrating. You always want to have that 100% KO rating, but that's the monkey off his back there. He doesn't need to get to further down the line and be desperate to be stopping people to keep up that sort of that 100% KO rating. The guy in front of him is southpaw, you know, wily, good, difficult to land clean on, but he done the job, won every round, dropped him. You know, the guy was fortunate to hear the final bell, so just keep marching on. And he's out again on the 4th of April. He's at my beloved Stamford Bridge. He's fighting at Chelsea. He's not on the pitch.
I was going to say,
not quite that level yet. One day. He's not a mad football fan, but he said, I'm going to follow Chelsea, following my footsteps. So I said, well, I'm getting you on this show then. So it's England v USA.
That's right.
We've got Roy Jones coming over. He's the team captain for USA. We got our finest, Britain's own Spencer Oliver is our team captain.
Course,
so
Big Spence.
Spencer's in. He's up against Roy Jones, and he might need a bit of backing. So we'll have to make sure the Brits are on son, and win. But he's in great form. You know, hopefully this week he's going to be sparring WBC Cruiserweight World Champion Badu Jack, who I boxed 10 years ago now, and Jack stood the test of time much longer than I did, and now up at Cruiserweight, you know, he's 3-weight world champion, been reinstated as WBC champion, so that's that will be, is it 3? I think it's his 3rd world champion that he's sparred. Yeah, in the last 12 months.
Building up an impressive resume already. Yeah,
exactly,
I presume tickets available in your bio.
Yeah, tickets available. Come via my bio. I'll pass you on to Lucas. That's his job as the prospect. He's got to sell his tickets.
That's true. Yeah.
But and if you can't get hold of us, then you know they're online.
I saw on his story yesterday. He was back jumping 51 inches on top of the big boxes.
That's it. That's in here.
Yeah, could be a basketball player with a jump like that.
Yeah. No, he got some spring on him, and that's I think that was just a cool down. Really? There's a little bit more in there, but I think we're struggling for head height in the gym.
Headbutting the ceiling.
Yeah. So he put the run the gauntlet out for Conor Benn. So Conor Benn put a post out. I think his was a different sort of jump. And he said post some proof. If you can match it, tag me and post proof. So we sent it in. He appreciated it. He sent us a little laughing face back. And Dan Lawrence, my old strength and conditioning coach, he's out with Conor Benn training him at the moment. He said challenge accepted.
Right. Well, speaking of Conor Benn, I think it's just over a month, isn't it, till he fights Chris Eubank Jr. You really have got the blueprint of how to beat Chris Eubank Jr. because obviously you did with a very impressive performance. Have they ever come to you and kind of asked you for how you went about that?
No, I've always had a good relationship with Conor. You know, from the get-go, like when he first sort of turned pro, I appreciated that he had a lot of pressure on his back and not a lot of experience. But and then wasn't, you know, a very different character to what he's had to become now. So yeah, I've always tried to offer, you know, any sort of words of advice or wisdom that you have and you gain as you go through. And this time, no, we haven't got into it and dissected it and about how to beat Eubank. But you know, he's a very different sort of fighter than I am. You know, we're just even down to the size difference will be a factor. I think Conor is very much like what it says on the tin. He's gonna come out. He's bring the heat. He's gonna bring the intensity.
He's gonna open up.
He's gonna hope to land something big on Eubank, and he's gonna want to put him away. And I think he'll live and die by those words. I can't see him, you know, pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, saying everyone's gonna knock him out, and then come out and try and nick a points win. It's not gonna be Ben. And I will be honest, I don't ever want to pick a winner right now because I've swayed left, I've swayed right, I've swayed this way, that way. When the fight was first made, I thought Eubank was maybe too big. And then this time round, I'm thinking, well, actually, you know, lots happened in the 2 years. You know, maybe Eubank's sort of seen his best days. Yeah,
that's when we spoke in Dublin. That's what you said. Yeah, you think maybe he's a bit over the hill now potentially. Yeah, he's got a lot of miles on the clock. Really.
A lot of miles on the clock, but he avenged that loss against Smith and looked like he'd rejuvenated himself. And now, Owen, what it's going to come down to is who can hold their head, because it's going to be an intense build-up. We've already seen a couple of eggs broken and the rest of it. So
round the face.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're in for a treat in terms of the build-up. Eubank has been exceptional in terms of the way that he's portrayed himself, and it's certainly everything has been on purpose and deliberate. And at the moment, he's taken on not just Conor Benn. He wants to take on everyone.
Eddie Hearn. Everyone. Everyone's in the firing line.
Which is you know. It's fun, it's interesting, it builds the fight. It can be tough, it can be tiring, it can be taxing. Yeah. You know.
Because you kind of did that in your build up to Carl Froch, didn't you? The first one round, you kind of.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I mean, I had to take on Eddie Hearn. You know, I took on, you know, a lot of things, and you're juggling a lot of things, and it is very hard. It's very hard, and you don't really realise it at the time because you're so invested and so tunnel visioned in the process, in the fight. But you know. It can be hard. Sometimes, this will be the biggest fight of Conor Benn's career, and it's the biggest fight of Eubank's career in the sense of sort of the build-up and, you know, maybe even was at stake. But when it comes to their mindset for training, it might be very different. It might be EUBANK thinking, this is not my hardest fight ever. Conor Benn probably thinking, this is going to be my hardest fight so far. So how does that affect their training?
Yeah, psychologically.
And is it even better? Like, so if Conor Benn will leave no stone unturned, he's working harder than he's ever worked before, and EUBANK isn't. He's training hard and he's taking it seriously, but he's not obsessing about it. He's not thinking about this day in, day out, every moment.
Could that work against Conor Benn though? Will he overthink and maybe burn out? Yeah.
So it could either be too much or too less. I remember being on the GB squad all them years ago, and I'm obsessing about winning every moment of every day. I want to be up first. I want to eat my breakfast first. I want to beat everyone on the bleep test. I want to be first around the track. I want to win the spars. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be the guy with when they used to test your hydration. I wanted to have the best hydration scores. And then when I looked out at some of the other guys who looked like they were just there on a holiday, they were at Butlins, taking it easy. And then they were the guys who actually went on and qualified. Some medalled, some didn't, but they excelled, and maybe because it wasn't so intense for them all the time.
Right, they just took it a little bit more easy.
Yeah, just take it in your stride.
I think that's something that's been levelled at Ben Whittaker, is that he's maybe has taken it a bit too easy and he hasn't really dedicated himself as much as maybe other people want to see him do. And did that come back to haunt him a little bit in his match against Liam Cameron? Now the rematch is on the cards. He's gone away. He's being pretty silent on social media. I think he's going to come back a different kind of boxer this time? Yeah,
so the Ben Whittaker situation, because he blew up, didn't he? Blew up in this, in the new age social media.
Yeah, it kind of went viral, didn't he? With some of his sort of showboating and skills,
and lots of big people, big names, big celebrities wanted to be invested with him. Be part of him, following him. That stuff is amazing. Like it's what you dream of.
Yeah, great for your career.
Great for your career. Great for you for your opportunities commercially that therefore drive the opportunities you get in your boxing. But he doesn't have the experience yet of dealing with a lot of these situations. Because they're not usually, if you're a household name, it's because you're Ricky Hatton and you've sold out the Manchester Arena half a dozen times, or you're David Hay and you've gone over and won the heavyweight world title against the giant Valuev out in Nuremberg. So you've dealt with the boxing and the attention. But I think Ben Whittaker's a really good fighter. Like technically, he's one of our best. Like he's a very gifted fighter. I think he's probably 28 now, 27, 28, I'd imagine. So physically, I'm not sure how much more he's going to develop. And he might be peaking now in terms of his boxing ability, but then he needs to marry that in with some experience. And pro experience is very different from amateur experience. He won a silver medal at the Olympics, but Liam Cameron probably would have never got anywhere near that level as an amateur, but in the pros, it could be a real tough night's work,
grinding,
real hard night's work, and that's what Whittaker's going to be up against, And time and time again we've seen gifted fighters who have maybe one thing lacking and they can come unstuck. So it's up to Ben now to show us that you've got the dazzling hand speed, you've got the ring IQ, you've got every punch in the book, but can you control the man in front of you? Can you put him in his place? And does that mean you need to hit harder? Does that mean you need to punch with more intent? Do you need to be more selective with the punches that you throw? You just got to be meaner.
Yeah, that's it. Do you think he underestimated Liam Cameron in that first match? Yeah.
I think he would. And Liam Cameron, lovely guy who's been on the podcast. He's someone who you would underestimate, wouldn't you? He's been rock bottom, and you wouldn't think he could come back, but he has. And there's a lot about him. And
it's a determined guy, I think, because he felt kind of wrong, didn't he, when he kind of tested positive, got given such a tough ban, came back from it, and then he sees kind of Tyson Fury test positive and get no ban at all. So he must feel slightly like he's been on the wrong end of a kind of tough
Yeah,
decision
you
there.
imagine like every now and again someone gets an example made of him, and it felt like that was
That's
for
it,
him.
yeah.
And it also just felt like he'd handled it wrong without realising. Do you know what I mean? He told me that I wasn't, almost like he wasn't too stressed about it. I was putting in an appeal and it makes sense to me, so I'll be fine. And then because he appealed and rather than took it, they're like, hey, right, well, we don't want any more appeals. Here's your 4-year ban. And that was it. He thought his career was over and therefore his life was over. But he's got himself back on track and he's put in some good performances. And, you know, he could be one fight away from, rather than being the opponent who brings good action, to being someone who people get really behind.
Could be the A side, couldn't he?
Exactly,
It's true. In terms of other rematches that are on the way, you're one of the few people who kind of tipped Dave Allen to give Johnny Fisher a really tough time. It turned out to be an epic kind of slugfest. Went one way, then it went the other. How are you seeing the rematch? You seeing it differently to how you saw the first one, or is it going to be kind of similar, just like all-out warfare?
Well, I think what to expect is, what does Johnny Fisher do this time round? Does he change stuff up? Because he came out against Dave Allen, who's a wily old boy. Do you know what I mean? He's been in there with some really good fighters and doesn't go into survival mode, but knows how to get through rounds, knows how to tie you up, knows how to hit you when you don't expect it and whatnot. And Johnny sort of just went all in, went for him, tried to put it on him, couldn't get rid of him, got caught, and then, to his credit, was in awful
big trouble, wasn't he?
Big trouble.
He was in big trouble, yeah.
And then, I mean, rallied hard and won that last round, but he, Miss Warner telling me it's 1 minute left, sorry.
It's all right.
So, yeah, but I think I'd like to see Johnny Fisher to come back and learn from it, you know, and implement a bit more boxing knowledge, should we say? Like, so you got to up levels if you're boxing Dave Allen, who has been there with. If you're in there with big guys who can take your head off, then you need to learn how to not get knocked out.
Yeah.
Like, he knows how to do that. And Fisher was on his case and couldn't really put a major dent in him, but maybe he's got to do something different. Has he got to vary the power? Has he got to, change the attack from head to body a little bit better? Has he got to just, and not be there to get caught at the end of the exchange? Allen will wing big right hands in and over, and they might hit you on the top of the head or the side of the head or behind the ear. They're not the most glamorous shots, but
It's kind of,
they still count.
Yeah, cumulative damage, isn't it?
And they hurt, and you get away with it. And yeah, Johnny, I think, hopefully, he's come away, he's focused, and there's no demons or no worries about that fight. He can come back and do it right. I personally wouldn't have been in a major rush for the immediate rematch.
Yeah, it has come around quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought maybe have 1 or 2 fights and then come back to Dave Allen, because it's always going to be there, and it's just how it is. It's boxing. But I'm really glad that Fisher's, I am happy he got the win, and I'm happy that he seems like he's in a good place, and I think it will mean that he becomes back a better fighter, and therefore
it's going to be a
you
thriller.
learn your lessons.
Yeah. Copper Box Arena this time round, isn't it? Was it?
Yeah.
It was out in Saudi, the first one, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So the atmosphere will be popping for this one, you'd think.
Yeah, and there might be a lot of nervous heads in that Copper Box. There's going to be a lot of the Romford Army in there, and they might not be all just another day at the office. They might know that as Johnny's going through the levels, he's got to learn on the job real quick, and but you're in for a good fight.
It certainly won't be any Alan Babbitt's 10-second knockout, I don't think, will it? It'll be a bit more of a war, this one.
Yes.
In terms of Eddie Hearn, he's been kind of in the spotlight as usual with his £1 million bet against EUBANK Jr. and things like that. If you were coming up today and you've got kind of Matchroom there, Queensbury there, and they're both after you, say, George Groves is the hot prospect on the block, which direction do you think you'd fancy going in? Down the Matchroom route or the Queensbury route?
Yeah, so I think the best promoter in right now in terms of being able to promote himself is Eddie Hearn. You know, that's you want to be associated with Eddie Hearn because he is famous. Like he's famous.
No,
so if you're with him and he's bigging you up, then he's
got that charisma, the star quality, isn't he? Really, that Frank hasn't quite got.
Yeah. I mean, Frank's got it. He's just got it in a different way.
Slightly nastier way, maybe. Yeah. You got to be nasty in this business to an extent, haven't you?
Yeah, but I mean, he's a very charming man.
Yeah.
Mr. Warren, like he has been for a long time.
Yeah.
And most boxing promoters sort of tend to be. In terms of like navigating a career, you'd say Warren's done it more times than Hearn, like took someone from scratch and got them all the way through. But in recent years, you'd say, you know, with the Joshua career, that's probably the best managed career that I've ever seen.
That's true.
Which was Eddie Hearn, but also with the help of Sky Sports. They're all now going to be on DAZN, which we'll find out who comes out on top. Yeah, I think Warren's signing up more fighters than Eddie is at the moment. They're signing up a lot of fighters, but with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, maybe it's the end of Eddie Hearn and the end of Frank Warren. Because
that was the next question. Yeah, how do you see that situation playing out?
I like what. You know, any change would bring panic. In initial reaction would be, oh, panic. Oh, what's going to happen here? Oh, is it gonna come undone? Mm-hmm. Is it gonna? You know, you always think with boxing, is it there forever, or is it? There's one spark that can get rid of it. You know, that it could die.
We hope not.
Well, of course, I hope not as a fighter, but I think it could be good. I don't always buy into that notion of it's too many belts and it's too confusing for the casual fan and that. It's like, no, that's just something that people in power say when it suits them, and then they say the opposite when it doesn't. You know, it's like, I've got your world champion here, like, okay, and then it's WBA had 2 world titles in each division at one point. They had the regular champion and the super champion.
Yeah.
And if you had the regular belt but you was a no one, then you was considered, you're not really a world champion.
Yeah.
But when Canelo wins it, it's like, he's elevated to full world champion. That's how it is.
Double standard slightly.
It's people, not something else. But if he's coming in and he wants the Ring Magazine belt or something similar to be the holy grail of boxing, and there's going to be tournament style fights, and I think it's really exciting. I boxed in the World Super Series, and that was really exciting.
Yeah, that got the public very excited.
You know, you knew who was fighting who, which you can get a gist of who's fighting who in boxing, but you don't have an actual fixture tournament setup. So I think that would be incredible. I think the weight divisions need to be revolutionised. Like I've said this for quite some time. I think there probably are too many weight divisions, but also it's ridiculous that if you're 12 stone, if you can't make 12 stone 7, you have to go up to 14 stone. If you can't make 14 stone, it's a free for all.
Yeah.
Like they brought in Bridger weight, and people moaned because it's another weight division, but you need to start dropping out some of these tiny weights, you know. And maybe you just have one, every 14 pounds or whatever. I think it's kind of similar, maybe every 10 kilos, 5 kilos, something like that. The Riyadh season are proposing with Dana White, I think it's really exciting. I think it'll be really good. And then you'll be seeing, there will be a shift in, say, Eddie Hearn. Is he now a manager, or is he a broadcaster, or is he a promoter, or is he a hybrid of all three? And maybe the same with Frank. Maybe Frank thinks, I need to have all these guys signed up to my promotion, because all these guys will eventually be fighting in some form of Riyadh season, and that's the way to go.
Well, I think Eddie kind of hinted that maybe he's thinking about potentially walking away, but you'd find that hard to believe, wouldn't you? I mean, he's so invested. He's got so much love for boxing and promoting in general. I think he likes. Yeah, who knows? I mean, he's had some mega nights. Like, has he got nights that he could ever
get close to replicating again. Maybe wants to try something else. Much like a boxer who wants to retire, you know, they get the bit they'll miss most is like the payday that comes in.
Yeah.
We don't get paid weekly; we just get a nice big chunk every time we
right.
box.
Yeah.
And then you'll miss being the man in the arena, like being in the ring, and everyone's come to watch you perform. I'm not sure if Eddie Hearn feels quite like that, but maybe he gets little ticks of that, you know, week in, week out, when he's
glory.
He's there at the heading up the press conference, or he is sitting ringside, or he can say who fights who. So
yeah, he's still got the power from that extent, hasn't he?
Yeah.
In terms of you mentioned the George Groves Boxing Club podcast earlier. He said he had Liam Cameron on. Who some of the best guests you've had, and who are some of the like dream guests you haven't had on yet, but you're still kind of working on trying to get down?
Well, I'd like to get Conor BENN on soon.
Shout out to Connor.
Yeah, shout out Connor. We'll have you soon, please, buddy. So yeah, we've I'd love to talk to him, and it doesn't need to be you know, probably the usual questions. I'd like to talk to him about the pressure of this fight. You know,
the family legacy and
the
all
family
those
legacy, and like
elements.
and give us some insights and maybe some tips for the listeners. And you know, he's an extraordinary character because you know he's totally invested in being, you know, the best version of himself in terms of a fighter, but he's doing it on a level that, you know, no one else is really doing.
Yeah.
Comparative to, you know, what they've done in boxing. You know, he wasn't an Olympian. You know, he hasn't had major, you know, domestic rivalries before getting to this point. He hasn't even had a world title fight.
Yeah.
And he's headlined the stadium.
Fast forward, doesn't he? Really.
Yeah.
True.
But you know, if you follow him online, you can see that he's leaving no stone unturned. He leans into the scientific sort of training, if you will. Like he wants to, you know, maximize every possibility. But you know, what's that like? And how do you train the brain? So I'd love to get into that with him. Liam Cameron came on. He was a great character. So we've had Ben Whitaker on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that rematch. And both them guys spoke brilliantly when they've been on. I'm not sure who else. We need to get some top quality Americans on.
Yeah,
so.
let's get somebody.
Yeah, now that
for sure.
Yeah, now that it's easy to get people. You know, we don't always have to fly out to find them in
That's true. Just get them on Zoom.
In Malaysia, try and get them on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a couple of questions about your career. Who was the hardest puncher you faced during your years in the ring?
I think probably the hardest puncher. I don't like to give it to Froch because don't give him too much. Yeah, he probably hit me with the hardest punch, but and I got stopped by Callum Smith, who's a big puncher as well.
Anyone that was kind of you didn't expect to punch as hard as they did?
I'll tell you, it won't go as far as it was. But there was a guy. It was a Cuban called Louis Garcia, who actually got out of Cuba and turned pro. So this would have been the late noughties, like 2008, 2009. We went out on a training camp in our under 17s or under 19s for England in Havana, right. And we went out to train with the Cubans, and I was with Anthony Agogo, I was with Cal Yafai. You know, Cal Yafai goes on to the Olympics and win a world title, and we all thought we were fighting these Cubans, and Agogo was the welterweight, I was the middleweight, and I was like, I'm fighting this guy and he's fighting that guy. But then by the time they all showed up for the weigh-in, the welterweight who I thought I was fighting has actually lost 6 kilos. He's fighting Agogo. And the light heavyweight, I was like, he's a monster. No, he's down, he's fighting me. And yeah, so we did it. It turned out it was going to be a proper bout that turned into a gym bout, like a skills bout.
Okay.
And I've got it on an old camcorder, mini disc somewhere. I have to dig it out, and Louis Garcia just gave me a right beat down.
Really,
I was good for the first 15 seconds. Tried to stick it on him, and then he just sort of shook it off and just went whack. Closed my eye in like the second round, and then I think we only did 3 rounds. You can see on the video that our England coach, Jim Davison, gets up with about 15 seconds to go, walks over and rings the bell for me. I was thinking, that was a real bout. I've never got that luxury. But yeah, he probably, that's the hardest dude who's hit me. But
some of those Cubans are just kind of really don't get the plaudits that they deserve, to be fair.
Yeah, he was like, lots of the Cubans were sort of agile on their feet and they punched loose and hard, but they weren't like wrecking balls. Whereas this guy, we'd show up there, and the minibus would drive us in, and he would be outside, we're hitting the sledgehammer on the tyre. That was like his favourite pastime. I was like, why? I've got to fight that guy. He was, so yeah, that was him. He was rock solid. He came over. I think he ended up in Ireland with Mike Perez and someone else, and it might have been Glenn McCrory or someone. Someone was looking after him for a bit. And then I think they just, once they probably end up in Miami, and then boxing's over.
The lifestyle kind of gets the hold of them. Yeah. Fair enough. What were the biggest lessons you learned from Andy Booth and Paddy Fitzpatrick as trainers?
Yeah. So Adam Booth's style of training was like coming from, an amateur where there's a lot of guys in the gym, and a lot of people get trained sort of the same way. To having someone like a lot of one-on-one time, a lot of specific, and Booth would do a lot of pad work, and it would be a lot of it's almost like we never threw combinations, we always threw like set piece punches. It felt like the equivalent of like if you're a football player, you just get you're David Beckham, you just get really good at free kicks.
Free kicks and corners,
just loads of free kicks.
Right.
You couldn't do much on the build up to the free kick or after, but if you got a free kick, you're getting it. You're home, right? So there was that. But yeah, you learn a lot. I remember talking to people who punched hard. Like I fought Kenny Anderson, Scottish guy, unbeaten at the time. As an amateur, won the Commonwealth Games, and we'd done some sparring. We'd booked him for sparring, brought him in for sparring, and then I just won the Commonwealth title, and I was just about to headline my first show on Sky Sports at the York Hall, back when York Hall was still a big night, you know, for Sky Sports, against James Obi Tony, where it wasn't the James Tony, but they had similar names when we went with it.
Lights out James Tony.
Yes. But James Obi Tony had an eye missing, or something was missing, and he failed the medical, so that show got scrapped, and they put me on the David Hay undercard 2 weeks later. So me and Kenny Anderson took the fight late notice. Obviously I'd been in the gym, but I think I'd peaked, and the stress of not boxing, like not headlining, and then going up to Manchester and fighting on another big card against an unbeaten guy, maybe caught me a bit off guard, and he drops me, Kenny Anderson, in the third round. And I just remember the punches, seeing them coming, but they were coming, they were like thick and weighty, and they would land, and they would just sort of, your brain would shudder a bit, and I was a bit dizzy. And yeah, I go down, I get up, and I think I survived the round. I come up the next round, same again, and Adam Booth's telling me to slip and slide and, make him miss and pivot round, maybe like the Cubans. And Dave Caldwell, who was like Adam's second at the time, obviously everyone knows Dave Caldwell, trainer from Sheffield, said, hold him. And I did, and that was the best bit of advice I've had from a corner up until that point. And I thought, fucking, that's the right idea. Yeah. So I was just like,
slow him down,
hold him,
wrap him up.
And then Adam admitted after, he was like, that was a lack of experience for him in the corner. I think Calder had probably done a lot more corners and a lot more guys who maybe had stickier points in their careers. Then Booth, who'd probably only worked with a couple, and predominantly David Hay. Yeah. I was like, thanks, man. That's the best bit of advice. That came from Dave Caldwell. But Paddy was great. Again, talking about James Toney. Paddy had spent time in out in California. He'd sort of been part of the Freddie Roach gym. He said that he'd be in Hollywood or LA and all these places, and he would come in and he would watch James Toney come in, and I can't necessarily verify it, but his stories had so much detail that I'm sure they were true. And it sounds like them stories when James Toney would roll in, after being out all night, and hand everyone their arse on Sunday morning sparring.
What a legend.
And so we would, I remember leaving booth and going to Paddy and saying like, I need to learn how to throw combinations. You can't just be like one punch if it don't work. Come in there. So we would do a lot of drills, a lot of sort of sitting in the pocket, where you're in range and you're slipping and sliding and you're trying to find them angles, and maybe not every shot's a hard shot. It might be a touch and then whip that last one in or stuff like this. So yeah, I feel like lots of skill was learnt for me. We drilled a lot of skill with Paddy, and he was when he was on his game, he was a very, very good, knowledgeable coach, and lots of James Toney. And then we'd all strut around after and pretend to be the man in the gym.
Great times. So in terms of the super middleweight division right now, at this point in time, how do you see it and how do you see it progressing? I think Benavidez has thrown his hat in the ring, has he, for there? So, I mean, we've got Canelo fighting soon, haven't we? So
yeah, you got Canelo and Skull, which I think that's in Saudi. That's the first time Canelo has sort of fought outside of, North America, Mexico. Maybe ever.
Yeah,
but
out of his comfort zone, finally, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I don't think Skull's going to pose too many problems, but you got to be on your A game. So that'll be great. But the super middleweights, I think because he's been so dominant, Canelo, I haven't really been a look in, and I haven't really know about any huge names coming through. The big name here in the UK will be Callum Simpson, who has been boxing really well of late. He's got a massive following up in Barnsley. I think they're going to take him up to Barnsley for his next show. It might be an outdoor show.
Okay.
And so it's stuff to get excited about him. But again, I think he's 28 now, and still ain't been in there with one of the elite guys. Crawford's up fighting Canelo. I think that's at super middleweight. So I mean, that's really exciting, and you got to think Crawford. Can he win? Like, he's pound for pound. Is he the best fighter in the world? He possibly could be. Could you back him to beat anyone? Maybe, but can he put a dent in Canelo like when Bivol couldn't? He's probably not. So is he going to win wide on points? Maybe, but I'm a bit out of touch when it comes to super middleweights. I'm not sure who's going to sort of take the reign from Canelo.
So like you say, it's kind of waiting for a changing of the guard, which seems like we've been waiting for a long time. And
even Benavidez, I think will be up at light heavyweight. He's so big. Right. He's struggled to make super middleweight before. You could see him up at cruiserweight one day. He's so big. So I think I can't see him, picking up at the super middleweight division.
Down, isn't he? Yeah. I think there's even talk that Dimitri Bivol could be going up to cruiserweight. Apparently, fighting Jai Opetaia. So I mean, it looks interesting, the cruiserweight division as well. To be fair, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cruiserweights is a good division now. And then Opetaia's, he's very active, very busy. Where he's Australian, he's having fights in Australia that sort of are almost off the grid, and then he's back here for the rest of us to sort of see him, whether it be in the UK, in Saudi, maybe even in America soon. But he's flying. We've got Badu Jack back in action, a big name now, been around a long time. I think Chris Billum-Smith from Britain, probably the biggest fighter we've got at cruiserweight, and he's talking up now. Badu Jack fight, it'd be a wonderful fight.
That'd be great, yeah.
Yeah, great for Chris. Great. Actually, he said he's going to avenge the defeat that Jack inflicted on me back in 10 years ago, nearly. Now. So, and Bivol, if he completes light heavyweight, then what else is there to do? He's going to have to move up.
That's it.
I think the rest of the light heavyweights will be happy if he sort of
they can swerve
some of the belts.
And just fight amongst
themselves.
themselves.
I did a debate on the podcast. I was like, strip him, and like Dex saying, you can't strip him. Why? I said, strip him. They keep fighting each other, strip and take the belts off. We know they're the two best. Let someone else fight for a belt. I'd like to see Benavidez fighting for a belt, and then obviously the long list of Brits we got. We're top of the list now is Callum Smith after his win against Buatsi, which was a great fight. If you haven't seen that, then get back and watch that.
For sure, absolutely. We've got to have a Jake Paul question in here, unfortunately. Yep. Do you think he could ever meet a real world level boxer? I don't know who he's even fighting next, but You don't think there's?
No, I don't think so.
He's putting the groundwork in, isn't he? But he's never really had that, amateur experience. Or you can't.
He's blessed and cursed by his profile, where he's you get paid more money to fight other people than real boxers. I think he was trying to link himself with Canelo for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was furious, wasn't he, when he signed?
That's a fight I'd like to see that.
That's the one we want to see.
Because I think, Mayweather does his bit. Like, Mayweather's probably the best businessman there's ever been in boxing, and he knows that I've got to pull him round for 10 rounds. Or he is just a lot bigger than me. I don't want to, roll the dice. Whereas Canelo, I think he's just like, I want to pulverise him, want to smash him.
I think Canelo, after what he said, didn't he, called him a own slave? Jake Paul called Canelo a slave, and I think that must have absolutely riled him up. If he sees him anyway.
You should get under his skin, Canelo. I think if you say the right things, you get under his skin.
That's true.
So I want to see that fight.
Yeah.
I'll pay for that fight.
Well, he signed a 4-fight deal, didn't he, with Riyadh season? So whether that could be part of it or that would just be like a little sideline.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, yeah. Let's see Paul. Let's see if he can sign with Riyadh season.
Yeah.
Put him in one of these new super tournaments.
Yeah.
Dana White sorted it out.
Let's see. That would be one for maybe 2026. Jake Paul and Canelo. Let's make it happen, guys. Come on. All right. I think is there anything else on the cards that you want to get a word in on?
No. I think boxing's, boxing's a fascinating place, isn't it? Really, where they're and. It seems like Sky is still committed to boxing, and Ben Shalom is looking to, I assume, improve his stable now, build his stable even more so. We're getting loads of good fights, loads of big fights, and then sometimes when we've had the fights, we're getting them again, like the Johnny Fisher's rematches, the Ben Whittaker rematches.
Yeah. Even better be a Bivol. We've had that twice. Could even have a third one there. So
do you reckon we get a third one?
I don't know.
See, that's the debate. I've seen it once, I've seen it twice. I don't really want to see it again. I'm not fussed about this 1-1. I'm not fussed. Like,
it's not going to be much different, is it? They know each other inside out now.
They cancel each other out barely. So, I think if it was a different time, different era, if Tyson and Holyfield had 2 12-rounders, hair whisker between them, you would be rushing for a third one. You want to see Tyson knock people out.
In fact, we haven't talked about Usyk and Parker. You see Parker calling out Usyk with that, another one of his
I haven't watched
videos.
it, but I know it was good. So I remember thinking, I'll watch that later when I'm in peace. That's going to be really good.
Yeah.
He's the best. He's the best when it comes to a call out.
Promotional videos, he loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything from Daniel Dubois since he pulled out of the fight either. He's gone very quiet. So we don't know what's going on.
I'm not sure. Because all of a sudden I thought, oh, well, that's strange, but it must be it must be ill. But then all of a sudden it's like, sometimes these things are not necessarily orchestrated in a sort of a dodgy way. It is just literally like, oh, you're not fighting now, we'll reschedule that fight. But then you're looking at the timeline and you're like, oh, well, actually, by the time we reschedule this fight, I can probably get you a fight with Usyk.
That's it.
And then you're like, oh, actually, maybe I'll just take that Usyk fight.
Yeah. So people read too much into it, but then it kind of works out the way people think it would anyway.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Who knows? I mean, we've seen that. We've seen Dubois Usyk already.
Yeah. We haven't seen Parker Usyk or Parker Dubois, to be fair.
No, exactly.
So that's what we need. We need both of those, I suppose.
And I think Parker's doing really well at the moment, and so I'd like to see him in with a chance.
Definitely.
Against one of those guys.
Yeah, Frank Warren was talking about Anthony Joshua the other day, saying, he expects to see him back in the ring. I'm not sure why he was talking about him, but could you see AJ back in against him? Or could you even see AJ being poached by Queensbury? Could you see that happening?
Maybe. I don't know. He's boxed through and through his whole career, hasn't he? Been with him, Matchroom. Might even be on the board of directors there, or a shareholder or something.
Is,
but
actually,
so he might just be widening his scope. But it makes sense now that they're doing so much business together, that the promoters, that they actually talk up other fighters,
rather than putting them down there trying to pick them up.
You haven't got to just look after your own. I'm not sure with Joshua, to be honest. I think probably the longer time goes on without him having a fight or a fight set up, talked about, the more likely is that he will not box again. And if he doesn't box again, I think it's probably the best decision. But when you are boxing through and through, you're boxing so long, and when you're not even sure what the world's like, what the world's going to treat you like if you're not a boxer anymore. Then you can't be too scared to call it a day.
Could be, couldn't it?
It might just be that we get Joshua Fury.
Yeah,
which
that's where maybe he's just sitting back thinking, I'll wait for Tyson Fury to get them two
100% be battling out for money. Yeah, you always think it's about the money, but ultimately when it comes down to it, it will be how you're perceived.
Yeah, legacy,
that's ego. Who likability. Like who wants to be liked more?
Just have the ability to say, I beat you. Whenever they kind of come face to face, which they will do in the future, someone wants to have that the last word.
But once that fight, if that fight does get set and made, like who's going to get booed on the way in? Who's going to get cheered on the way in? Are they both going to get cheered? They're both going to get booed. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's a lot at stake, and one wrong move, it can blow up in your face. But I guarantee you, both men will be desperate to be cheered on the way in, and certainly cheered after. God. So that'll be just as important to them as anything else.
That's true. Well, let's hope we get to see it one day. All right. Remember, subscribe, leave a comment. And we'll be back next month with more words of wisdom from St. George himself. George, thank you.
Cheers, Owen.
Cheers, man. Much appreciated.